What is up, everyone? It is Friday, the second to last day of August. It is, I can't believe it's going to be September. And what is this, like 3 or 4 more months of the year? And next thing you know, we are in 2025. So it's insane to think about, all of the things that have been happening in the Tesla world, even for us personally, but it's crazy. It's already September. And yeah, so thank you, Hans and Brian and Joe for all being here. How's it going?
Good.
Good. Awesome. Well, let's get straight into it then. All right. So Tesla stock, it had a couple of blips this week popping up. We were actually having a quick discussion with Brian about that, but it is at 209, about 210 today, and previously last week, I believe we were on Thursday. It was at 218. So it's dropped a little bit, and it is still about 16% down year to date. So for some of you that, I thought this is not completely Tesla related, but obviously, Joe and I and Kelvin and Brandon all had the opportunity to fly out to Atlanta to meet up with Tosca and talk to her about passion flicks and all of her work in the film industry, specifically with romance, turning romance novels into actual movies. And I think there's a lot I could go over, but I think that really just the highlights are how I would say all of the work that she's doing, and in a lot of ways, it feels like the Musk family has the same recipe, and it's probably obviously I don't know if it's highly influenced by Elon and all that stuff, but Kimball does the whole farm to table thing, right? It's like, literally where the food's being produced, it goes onto the table. Tosca is doing the same thing, but with film. And it's literally taking, romance novels, working with the authors, and then putting them on films. And then, obviously we know with Elon, he's literally, the whole vertical integration for Tesla. So, it's interesting to see, even some of these similarities running through all of the whole family, really. But Tosca's an amazing woman. She's especially the amount that she's had to accomplish and deal with, specifically a woman in the film industry, because you kind of get typecasted into just doing like Hallmark type things. And so really for her, that's why she ultimately had to start her own business, really Passion Flicks. It's because, there were certain movies she just couldn't get off the ground. So yeah, super inspiring story, super amazing time. We're going to release, we've had some, changes to the edits we've been doing. So we're hoping to release the interview sometime next week. It's been a little bit, taking a little bit longer, but also too, the Memorial Day weekend is coming. And as you both probably know, all of us know, it's like the viewership's going to be horrible. So we're waiting till next week to post it. But, hopefully you guys will enjoy it, but just something kind of outside of the everyday Tesla world that we were able to kind of step into our romance and love novel side. But still super cool because, like I said, this family, Tosca, Kimball, Elon, and even May, just the stuff that they have accomplished and done is out of this world. One cool story actually about Tosca, I'll leave you guys, I'll end it with this, is that really Elon had moved out to Canada and May was shortly following afterwards. And I think May was leaving South Africa with the understanding that, hey, like, I'll come back and then we'll potentially make the decision and sell everything. But Tosca took that as, I literally need to make this happen. So she pretty much had sold the house, had someone ready to buy the car, a lot of the furniture. Like, there's just a lot of things like that, initiatives that she would just take
basically burned the boats for May and like, nope, we're not doing this anymore.
Yep. And actually, one of the questions that I wish I could have asked her was, in a very similar fashion to when COVID had hit and moving to Atlanta, she literally went to visit Atlanta. Next thing you know, she buys a home, goes back to LA, and is like, guess we're going to Atlanta. So it's, it's just, it's crazy how that continues. But, super inspiring story. Just, I can't wait to share it with you guys. We're going to do 2 segments just because it was an hour 15 interview. So we're going to do a part 1 and part 2, but something you all can look forward to. All right. This was probably one of the big pieces of news in the past week. The referral program is back. I love how they've structured it to essentially earn $500 pretty much towards anything, right? Supercharging, software upgrades, merchandise, even off of a vehicle. I think it's up to $5,000. But I know that they've been thinking about bringing the program back. It's been gone for about 3 or 4 months. I think it left in May or something. So what did you guys think of this new referral program? Do you think this will help? Is there any tweaks that you think that they should have made with rolling this back out?
I think it's fascinating. The big thing Elon said was these programs have a cost, and the costs are significant. It's basically spending, in this case, the buyer gets $1,000 discount, the referrer gets a $500 store credit. That's effectively about a $1,500 discount on the price. There are a couple benefits to doing it. One is you can, by doing benefits like this, reductions like this, it doesn't drive down the MSRP. And the MSRP is the number that they use for a lot of valuation basis. So psychologically, it's better to do discounts than to just drop the price, at least for the market. But I think it's very generous. If you refer one friend, which is what most referrers out there are going to do, is over the course of their ownership, only get maybe 1 or 2 referrals ever. $500 is going to get you a lot of supercharger miles or an awful lot of store swag. And the $500, it isn't really $500 because there's a whole lot of markup there. What I would have liked to have seen is a less generous program, but with higher limits. And what I'd really like to see, because in the past they've used the referrals to determine who gets into events, because they don't have a PR department, this would have been a great way to do a backdoor PR department where you can, who do you want at your next big event? You want the people who are the most passionate and involved. And a normal company would have a department who figures out who that is rather than just kind of hopes they show up correctly on X and address that. But this is another way they could have done that. But overall, I think it's exciting, and I'm curious to see how far it goes.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think that it's an ever evolving situation, and I'm pretty sure they'll amend it as things go on. But I think it's a good first step.
I'd be really curious to see data on, how many people that are using these credits are first-time Tesla buyers versus returning Tesla buyers, because I think that would help us to understand if this is an effective tool in bringing in new customers and, achieving conquests, or if this is just really basically preaching to the choir and helping supporters of the company to get a better deal. Either way, I'm not necessarily against it, but it would be great to have that piece of information. On Brian's point about, an informal PR department, one of the famous figures in OG Tesla history for the referral program, that it just reminds me of is Ben Sullins, who I think has, multiple roadsters that he earned on that, I'm not sure if he's really welcome at Tesla PR events or not anymore. But all of that aside, I do think that it's great to incentivize people to actually get out there and help. And, regardless of Ben's current position on Tesla, he did help to spread the word and support the company at a pivotal time. And so even though I have some personal distaste for him in his semi-Ross-like pre-Ross era turn on the company, the fact of the matter is that he did throw a lot of support to the company, and that was meaningful. So anyways, sorry, that's a random side trail.
I disagree. I think it was a perfect side trail. I would add to that list, Fred from Electric has 2 roadsters coming, and he is similarly not the happiest Tesla advocate, I guess would be the nicest possible way of putting it. Yeah,
That is the
there's
nicest way.
that is the nicest way. So I would say the thing about preaching to the choir is, remember, you only get to refer a new customer once per human. Once you're in the ecosystem, you're never going to be someone else's referral again. So there's only another like 7-8-ish billion possible referrals out there before we run out.
So all of that to say, use Brian's Tesla referral code instead of Fred or Ben's.
Yeah. I would say, like, I think in this case, they are really trying to incentivize probably new owner referrals, I think, with this. And I think that $1,000 isn't just it's significant enough for if you know someone is interested in a car, you will insert that and be like, hey, use my referral code. I think there's enough incentive there to be like, hey, you get $1,000 off, I get 500. But so I would, that's my assumption in this new referral program is versus like, hey, I make this up. I think Brian, you were saying like, something that where you could actually get a couple more opportunities maybe to going to events. So I think this one is probably tailored more to like those new customers, the people across the street that you're trying to get into an EV versus like referring yourself, upgrading. So there is going to be a little bit of that, double dip where you buy, people are going to upgrade because it's still, again, maybe you could, I think you can obviously refer yourself, and then you can get the $1,000 plus the 500. I assume you can double dip, but either way, I do think that there's going to be a little bit of people, obviously current customers that are going to use it. But I think that this program, because if I can get 10 referrals and $5,000 off another car on top of the, federal tax credit and some of the other things, I mean, that's pretty significant. You're talking Colorado prices. Imagine you're in Colorado, like Tesla Flex. That dude probably is going to have like 15 Teslas by the end of the year because it's like, there's probably a max on like how many Teslas you can buy, but it's like, there's just these incentives are becoming pretty significant and, it's not something you'll overlook. So I think they did a good job to like, if they're really trying to move cars, which I don't know if they are, I would assume they are, especially given the crazy interest rates and where the economy is. So I thought that they did a good job. I think this will actually get people to talk about the referral program, get people to make moves on it. But I hear you, Brian, as far as like, I think there's a lot of other cool prizes that they can layer in at some point as well. And who knows, maybe
Two more
go ahead.
quick little points just to add in here. I think one of them is like the Gary Blacks of the world are going to love this compared to, another price cut. And Brian referenced that a little bit earlier, but I think that's true. And really just remotivating the butts in seats sales force that Tesla has to get out there and do this. And then the other thing, just one addition that I'd love to see, and they would need to bring down the amount by quite a bit, but I would love them to actually include used vehicles in the referral credit program. Even if it was just $100 or $200 off that someone got on a used vehicle compared to a new vehicle, it would be great to be able to send, because there are a lot of people that I know that I would refer a Tesla to who are just not in a position to buy a new car. And so I send them, links to the used store on a regular basis. Like, hey, here's one that's in your area that kind of meets your needs. And, there's nothing right now that helps to incentivize people to do that. And I think there's a large swath of buyers that are not necessarily interested in the new cars that would be applicable to.
Yeah, I think we had this discussion weeks back. Like, even for me, I know Joe, there's a couple companies like an EVs Republic, some dealers that I would actually recommend. But outside of like, like I personally couldn't, I had a friend that actually I hadn't talked to in like 7 years. He randomly called me, hey, I'm looking to get a Tesla finally. But I told him like, hey, you got to go to tesla.com. You got to be careful with some of these other dealers. Just because they don't know enough nowadays still where I can say I trust, like overall, like if it's a general rule of thumb. So I would assume if they had a referral program for the used Teslas, that would be that could do really well, because it would just get, again, people that maybe can't afford the new cars into Teslas. All right, Joe, I'll pass this to you. You're on mute, but you are a real truck owner.
It's true. I am a real truck owner. I have not got this update though, but I thought it was cool to see like people doing it. I did see also that Gregor Truck went to his service center and had them force the update. So that's one option if anybody is willing to not be patient enough to wait. I don't know. I'm pretty patient. I'm just going to wait for the update to come naturally, but I think it's pretty cool. Like, I think it was Ashok who said it, that they were going to do the park assist first before they implemented the FSD, because, just so they could see how things were working with I guess it's the camera setup probably and things like that they were worried about. I don't really know why it's so different, but also I did notice that Meet Kevin spoke about this, and he had this whole diatribe about, if they can't get this fixed on this, then what makes you think they're gonna get a third party? So it's just like the most ridiculous leaps of the gymnastics, the lyrical gymnastics that people make to like come up with these wild solutions as to why Tesla can't do something when clearly they're doing it, is just pretty fantastical to me. But yeah, I think this is awesome. I think Park Assist is going to be amazing, especially since we don't have any of the sensor suite on the vehicle. So I was always curious how this was going to work anyways. So I'm pretty excited.
I would add to that, though, it is a reasonable question to raise. If it takes 9, 10, 12 months to get FSD ported, we saw how effortless it was to get it from S to X to 3 to Y, and we just assumed it was easy. My only hope is that maybe it's because of the rear steering that's adding spatial complexity. And if that's the case, it would make sense, and then they would be back to doing it very easily on other vehicles. We also saw the Semi out last week with LiDAR on it, presumably for ground truth data collection. So maybe it's not as easy as just having a 3D impression of the world stitched together. Maybe there is some added complexity we don't understand. So I don't know.
Well, I definitely think that the steer-by-wire aspect of it, regardless of whether it has front steering or not, is part of the complexity that's involved there. And then, there's definitely a whole new set of basically technical challenges with a platform like the Cybertruck, where they have, basically radically new architecture in a lot of ways. So yeah, I agree though. Hopefully that once they solve the Cybertruck, then the port to whatever these next generation style vehicles are will be much faster, simpler, and easier. And it's kind of like the same deal with the introduction of doing these full end-to-end neural networks has introduced a whole new, realm of complexities in rolling out from 12.3 to 12.4 to 12.5. These things are taking a little bit longer than we had hoped. I think that something similar with the new vehicle architecture, that, once you get into the details, it's not quite as straightforward. But once we have a good, robust process for solving it, then we can speed back up again.
And
I agree with that.
I think what you're saying is that not so much the steer by wire, because when it's driving, it's definitely doing that. But you mean the variable steering? Yeah, that could introduce a whole lot of new complexity that it needs to learn to understand. So I think that's a very solid point. Hans, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I was just gonna say the front camera too, probably, because that's a new placement for all the input.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a couple things, like the autopilot team is a lot smaller than everyone thinks, right? You don't have this insane team of like hundreds of, if not a couple thousand engineers. I think it's 120, maybe like 200, whatever the number is. But they don't have an insane, or the team is not big for autopilot. So I think that's something. So I don't know how they're divvying up, like out of how many of those engineers are focused specifically on the Cybertruck. But you all called out, things that are going to be new variables. to the truck, which are going to be the steer-by-wire, the four-wheel steering, the front camera, and the size of the vehicle. Obviously, those will all kind of add various dynamics. There was things I remember even back when FSD beta was rolling out. It did get to a certain point where, and again, it's a different system now because it's the neural network and whatnot. But they, sometimes my ex would have a slower rollout on some of the updates just because of the size dealt a little bit with it as far as like how they would roll it out. Like, so I just think that they're prioritizing, and obviously we'll get into like the whole hardware 3 and FSD pretty soon, but I'm personally really looking forward to this. I mean, I think probably my most negative feedback on the Cybertruck is the fact that you're driving like this Crown Vic size car, and I have to turn on, like when I'm gonna like park in a spot, if my front camera, it doesn't turn up typically, so I have to turn it on, make sure I'm getting close, and then I use my side mirrors to be basically size like how close I am if I'm parked the right way, just because so this, hopefully with the park assist and ultimately just being able to size like how close are things, the range is really important for this truck, especially given its size. That's just my opinion.
Well, right. And as they ramp up shipment, as we've seen with the photos of how many trucks are about to enter the world, you're definitely gonna need more of assist features. These are people that, like me, I never owned a truck before. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of new owners that are going to be having this big vehicle to manage without any assistance. So it's going to be, I mean, we're just in that day and age, like cell phones, right? It's like, how could you not have a vehicle with that? So I think that's what's gonna, I was looking at that lot and looking at all those people that are kind of all those new Cybertruck owners, and I'm thinking, holy cow, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. It is going to be very interesting. So one other thing, we all know that Tesla is a car company. So Elon really
Probably nothing.
Yeah, it's looks like a bathroom. And so here, not that one. The stage. So
definitely a Bucky's bathroom.
Yeah,
it is very clean.
So Elon, his caption was the video inside of the Cortex today, the giant new AI training supercluster being built at the Tesla headquarters in Austin to solve real world AI. So what did you guys think of that video? Like what comes to mind when you saw kind of that video and just where Tesla's headed? I mean, I remember seeing that thing and they were literally trying to build like the building part of it. And then next thing you know, he shows a video of like the inside. So within months,
yeah.
Skynet.
So the building is not finished, but this part of it is. And that's something we see kind of uniquely with Tesla is they don't wait for the building to be finished to get the work underway inside. It was pointed out by Fred that according to sources, this isn't even using liquid cooling yet. And it's like, well, is your sources your ears? Because my gosh, or is your source anyone who's ever worked in a data center? Because come on, if you look at the drone footage outside, you can see that the cooling system is not complete yet, but they're already using it. And so they're, I assume at this point, configuring and getting it dialed in. I don't know what it's actually doing. Do we know if it's actually solving problems or if it's just configuring? I imagine it's still in the configuration process, because I imagine it's a complicated bit of math to crunch and that it takes a little while to get it set up. So it'll be very interesting to see. I imagine that is a pretty warm room at this time.
Yeah, I know that Hans is probably going to go into the weeds on this pretty soon, but I just thought from a layman's perspective, like what you were saying, yeah, it's got to be a hot place, but holy cow, like Elon's been saying for a long time that this isn't just a plug and play solution. You can't just take these and just You know what I mean? And then it works, and then you're off to the races and you're good to go. So seeing the complexity, and yeah, he had put out that video, and then a few days later you get like a little bit of the sauce behind what's actually happening with the TT OPE and all that. It's like holy cow, man. They made their own freaking their own transfer system for data. Like they invented a new way to get to faster data because of the computes that they have. I mean, it's what Tesla is doing is staggering, man. It's incredible, and they just don't get enough credit on these little details and things like that. It's pretty insane. They had to
Yeah,
patent that or whatever. It was pretty awesome.
Well, they patented it, I think, and then they have given it now to the basically the foundation that owns Ethernet. So one I would make on this is that now we've seen Elon multiple times recently, basically elbows deep in the construction of data centers, both at XAI and now at Tesla. And one of the things I said when he did it at XAI is that this is going to help the construction at Tesla. The fact that they're building, this one in Tennessee, like there's learnings that are going to occur from that, and those learnings can then be transferred back to Tesla as they build theirs. And I'm relatively confident that something along those lines has happened. The TTPoE thing was cool, Joe, and basically the short version of it is that TCP/IP is the transport protocol that the entire internet operates on. And one of the things with the internet is that, if you're transferring data over long distances and poor connections, you need to have a built-in mechanism that can deal with the fact that, okay, sometimes data transfer is really, really slow. And in these high bandwidth supercomputer applications, that's not an edge case that you're having to deal with. And so they were basically able to, through vertical integration, look at the entire stack of TCP/IP and build it back up and eliminate a number of steps from the process and move some things that are normally handled in software into hardware and implement these custom pieces of TTPoE hardware in their chips that sped up this data transfer process by a dramatic amount. And one of my favorite people to listen to on a lot of these technical chip related items is wow, I just blanked out on his name, but he was the one of the designers at Tesla who worked on Hardware 3. It's not Pete Bannon, it's the other guy who now has gone off. No,
Keller?
He did it. Yeah.
Yes, Jim Keller. Thank you. Sorry, that was bothering me. So Jim Keller, one of the things that he has pointed out is that over time, all of these custom siloed network protocols like NVIDIA is pursuing right now with InfiniBand, they always lose to Ethernet. That over the long arc of history, Ethernet always wins. And Tesla seems to be moving in on that they're, basically trying to put Ethernet back on track to be as fast, if not faster, than all of this InfiniBand hardware that is one of the major bottlenecks that NVIDIA superclusters really have to face. And now that TTPoE is something that we know is implemented on Dojo. I don't know if, honestly, what the this supercomputer cluster that they're implementing at Tesla or the one at XAI, I don't know if those involve that style of networking, or if, since they're mostly NVIDIA chips, if they really are just going with InfiniBand and the standard networking solution that NVIDIA provides. So leave that open for discussion for people, but it is a technology that they're moving forward with aggressively. We do know that Dojo cluster is now operational, at least at some level, in New York. And so they're continuing to drive this parallel process of developing not only chips, but basically the full stack of hardware and software necessary to operate an AI powerhouse supercomputer that could be completely independent of NVIDIA. And that just continues to drive pressure back on Jensen to stay up, compete. Let's stay up to date. And Jensen, to his credit, has done a phenomenal job of outpacing, for the most part, Elon and Tesla's efforts on this front, but that may not always be the case.
So one quick question I have, just to kind of maybe double click on what you said, and maybe again I'm misunderstanding this, but you essentially said that like Tesla deciding to go with Ethernet versus like what everyone, I guess, maybe has become the new industry standard. Is that kind of like a LiDAR versus like pure vision, kind of like, I guess it's one of those things, like it is a bet that Tesla is making by going with Ethernet versus the other route? Is that kind of what you were alluding to?
Yeah, kind of. I'm trying to think if there's a better analogy. Brian, do you have one that you can think of here? So I'm thinking something more like, JavaScript wins even though it sucks, kind of a thing. And not necessarily that Ethernet sucks, but these open source protocols. Maybe here's a good one. This is why Linux wins over Mac OS. It's more along those lines, that it's an open source ecosystem that has a lot of eyeballs on it. There's a lot of shared motivation to develop the technology. And that ecosystem ultimately is just more powerful than a proprietary closed source version.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it's really interesting how, I think I really love how the panel really kind of like brought together like just the ability that Tesla is going to be able to, all of the learnings that, again, we get to benefit from all of the other Elon companies with XAI. Here he is in the thick of it. And obviously we know that he gave some of the chips or whatever that were just sitting in the Tesla warehouse over to XAI. And so it's almost like they were the guinea pig, and they're a private company. So if anything kind of goes wrong, it's not like you're going to really hear about it. But either way, it's like, I love that, Tesla, and it's more of really Elon and his whole team, they are going to be able to like kind of redefine everything. Look at, okay, this is how things are typically built. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, they take another path. And maybe that's where, as you said, right, it's where it's kind of like JavaScript or Linux. It's just, this is the better path. This is not maybe what everyone else is doing, but they're saying like, they're almost kind of like repositioning things and going back to the standard, right? So I love how there's always those like kind of key learnings that Tesla will take, and they'll pivot, right? And potentially make big pivots.
Well, you're also looking at a situation where it, like, you take a cell phone to the past, you know what I mean? And they would think it's magic, right? I think like we just reached a different level of evolution of understanding, like what they can pull out of that networking has never been done before. Nobody could do it, right? So it's just like a vastly greater understanding of what that network can do that they've unlocked. And it's like, I mean, it might not be like, you know what I mean, like the greater whatever going forward or whatever, but the fact that they were able to do this and to know that the potential is there, that it can do more from that type of system and networking is, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, and let me be real specific just about one of the advantages that this gives. It means that you can use standard Ethernet wires and standard Ethernet cable or switch mechanisms in order to operate these very high-level fast networks. And that there's just an addition of one little piece on your chip that allows you then to use standard networking hardware and operate much, 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 much faster than traditionally you would be capable of. And so, yeah, you get to the benefits of all of the scale that already exists, all the manufacturers, all of the competition that there is in the, Ethernet networking space. But you can use that and then apply it in an area where it can perform significantly better than anything else that's out there. So you're really putting it, like I said, on par with something like an InfiniBand, but using standard hardware And it's just one little extra piece on your actual your Dojo chip or whatever the future, whether it's Dojo 1.5, Dojo 2, Dojo 3. It's just a little layer that goes in between there and the network switch. So it's a pretty cool.
Yeah, and we know Tesla would never do this, but Elon has commented even publicly about how, Tesla doesn't have, they're running so fast, they don't have time to tell all of the amazing stories that are going on at Tesla, like the breakthroughs that they're making with this supercomputer, the breakthroughs that they're making with FSD, and some, because they're just running so fast and they're very lean. But could you imagine if there was someone that they hired who kind of would just talk about all of those things and really just continue to put Tesla on a, just shed Tesla in a different light on, the actual impact that they're making in so many industries? Because it'll be interesting too. Next thing you know, maybe the Tesla chips are competing with the NVIDIA chips, but I don't know if Tesla really cares to be like selling chips. But if this is the gold rush, I mean, next thing you know, they're already doing robotics, so they might as well sell the thing that makes the robot in itself, or who knows, they become a dealer. But that's just something that I haven't, that we I haven't even thought about. Next thing you know, they're literally just a dealer or wholesaler for these chips and things like that, and they're competing with NVIDIA. And in some ways, they low key are right now. They'll get there further, but yeah, it's just interesting. All right, so I'm gonna potentially, Hans, I think I've been fairly neck deep in this, maybe not. But Elon commented a little bit about some AI regulations. So Elon said, and it's funny how he led off with this, because I don't think he typically doesn't tweet like that, but he'll just say it. This is a tough call and will make some people upset, but all things considered, I think California should probably pass the SB 1047 AI safety bill. For over 20 years, I've been an advocate of AI regulation, just as we regulate any product technology that is a potential risk to the public. And just some quick history here. Elon donated $100 million to a nonprofit, OpenAI, which is now for profit, worth potentially close to 100 billion. So he's been just, he has very deep roots in trying to, regulate and really create his and be a part of AI, because he sees like the good and the bad and the ugly with it. So I think he's just been a huge advocate. Hans, I don't know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have any thoughts or comments on this?
Well, one of the things is that I definitely don't understand the legislation as well as I'm assuming that Elon Musk does. If you look into XAI has a safety advisor, and that person is Dan Hendricks. And Dan Hendricks is one of the key architects of this legislature. And he replied to this tweet and kind of outlined his reasonings for why this is a good piece of legislation. It does make me nervous because while the FAA does regulate something like air travel today, it did not regulate aircraft effectively during the development phase of that technology. That was regulation that kind of came in after the fact. And basically, once it was introduced, it killed off innovation in the aerospace industry. And there's a reason that we only have a couple of companies right now that produce commercial aircraft. Essentially, Boeing has taken over the domestic market, and its only real competition is Airbus, which isn't even an American company. And all of the other, McDonnell Douglas, Northrop Grumman, all of these other formerly great aerospace companies have all died. And regulatory capture is the mechanism by which that occurs. So there's an inability of American companies to compete in this space, and it's really to the detriment of society, in my opinion. And so this is kind of beginning my fear is that something like SB 1047 is the beginning of that phase for AI. And I believe that we need AI in order to continue to grow the economy so that we can have a world in which we have a growing pie instead of a flat to shrinking pie in which zero sum political thinking really takes over and dominates. But like I said, Elon understands all those dynamics. He understands this regulation specifically better than I do, and I don't know that I completely just defer to his judgment on this, but I'm not going to, just immediately declare that he's an AI doomer now because he supports this one piece of legislation, and write him off entirely. So it's something that I need to spend more time really digging into. But it definitely makes me concerned.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's an AI doomer. I don't think it's that. I think it's just that bad people and bad intentions, right, are kind of like, I mean, you ask a room of 10 people, like, what would they use for their first superpower, and it, like, 9 times out of 10, it's a bad thing that people will do first. It's like, rob a bank. I'd be invisible. I would fly so I could, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like there's just, people are innately like, it just sucks, but there's a lot of bad people and not a lot of people that are good natured, you know what I mean, like, that are trying to do these type of things. And of course, like Hans said, I mean, that comes with regulation too, right? You end up with like some of these political figures that like see the cash grab in it, and so they're gonna probably do whatever they can to get money out of it, however that works, you know what I'm saying? But I think there needs to be some type of oversight on a personal level, because just from looking at some of the videos and things that can be made, I mean, you could like damage a person's reputation quickly with AI in some of these videos and photos and things like that, and just pass it off as it's real. You know what I mean? Like, if you were like that type of person. And I mean, there's some really good AI tools out there. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to jump in real quick and say
Yeah, go
I've been
ahead.
talking with some people recently who have been contacted by fake me's on X, and the conversation immediately goes to give me your crypto wallet. And so of course these people report them to me, I report them, and they said, yeah, it's harmless because it doesn't work. And I said, right, but right now the tools exist, and within 6 months to a year they'll become common, where it won't be DMs you'll be getting, it'll be a video that looks and sounds like me telling you whatever it takes to get you your money out of your hands. And that's coming real quick.
If not already happening in subtle ways. Yeah, Hans, were you gonna say something?
I was just going to say, and it's not really individuals that you need to be worried about that are doing that. It is, centralized actors. And so I think whatever regulation takes place really needs to focus on dealing with that fact that it's going to be some sort of an institution that is performing these types of actions, that needs to be defended against, not necessarily, you know, Joe or John or, a person. And I don't know how we do that from a regulatory standpoint, but I think that ultimately the benefits of AI should hopefully accrue to individuals, that if we create systems like it, there's always this race of, the good guys and the bad guys trying to get one over on each other with a technology. And so there, just as fast as there are people that are going to be making predatory things with AI, there's also going to be people making defensive tools with AI. And the thing that I really hope for and want to advocate for in the future is that individuals continue to receive defensive tools, at a rate that is
Yeah.
at or above whatever the
Yeah.
offensive tools that institutions are using against them.
Yeah, I was just talking to some actually some colleagues the other day about, this is something you probably already heard about, Scarlett Johansson's voice being like essentially reused, and again, allegedly. But OpenAI came and like, hey, we want to use your voice. She said no, and then next thing you know, they used a version that sounded like it. But aside from that whole issue, it's just more of like, I think that's the issue here, is like, how do you defend yourself in this day and age where things are changing so fast? I mean, maybe at some point, like the real truck owner is no longer with us, and we have an AI version of the real truck owner. Joe specifically, like that's the type of stuff that we're going. It's like next thing you know, you have podcasts running that are literally just AI. generated beings, and it's people. And again, it's one of those things I wholeheartedly agree with what Hans was saying. And even what you were saying, Brian, is just that, there needs to be some type of regulation. I hope that there is going to be, tools given to the overall audience to protect themselves, because this is the next big threat. Not that, we should all live in paranoia, but, I think, especially if you're out there and you have a big audience, you will, your identity will continue to be stolen. Or at least, used for AI generation. Like I had, there was just some other people the other day, like they'll use my name and my photo to essentially pull crypto from you, or, they'll try to utilize saying, hey, I'm this person, you send me money or something, right? So it's just like, there's a lot of that stuff that's already going on, and it's because of the affiliation that our club has with Elon and just, Dogecoin and some of these other things. So they're already like, that whole crypto world is just already utilizing just scams. And so now imagine you have computers with AI and all this, bots just being able to do all that stuff. And it's already happening. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Just a few days ago, I saw a video on your channel with shallow fakes of my very own face in both Justin and Raphael's car. It was
I mean, who are people? It's literally like, Brian he's on the podcast already, but he just starts inserting himself into the back of people's trucks, man.
The shallowest of fakes.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah.
What is it? Shallow Hal? Shallow Brian? All right.
Yeah,
So,
but I was thinking, because we're in this world of social media, so our voices, our pictures and videos are already out there. So, it doesn't take much to copy our image and the voices. There's already programs that do that. So it's going to be very interesting times for the future, for sure.
I think the scary thing is that when people start potentially holding others liable, I'm making this up. I don't really have that big of a following, but when you think of, like, I'm making this up, some people start getting scammed and then they come after me directly for scamming them. I don't have money on the side just laying around so that I can deal with random lawyer fees and just, and obviously maybe those don't go somewhere. So maybe this is kind of an ignorant statement, but it's just, there has to be some type of protection for the general public and audience, in my opinion. All right, so this has been kind of controversial in the Tesla community. I'm going to pass this to real Cybertruck owner, or real truck owner, Joe.
It's funny because in that screenshot, you can see that we have an insider right there who knows exactly about FSD hardware.
Shallow Han.
Shallow Hans. No, I think as things develop, I think it's really cool that hardware 3 is rolling out for FSD is rolling out on hardware 3. I think it's like, especially like about time. There's so many. Hans had pointed this out in the last conversation, like how many vehicles there are that would just be like pity to be ignored. And there's a lot of Model 3s from 2018 to 2022. And and Model Ys, early Model Ys and things like that are just like, yeah, this needs to happen. So, that's a lot of potential future customers, and especially for the used car market. I know a lot of people don't really think about that, but for the used car market, you're telling somebody they can buy a 2019 for like under 20 grand, and with all the discounts and things, they're getting a really good deal on a vehicle. And then to add FSD on top of that, it's just like a no-brainer. Hans.
I'll just say that anyone who thinks that hardware 3 is not going to get a roughly equivalent version in performance of FSD to an AI4 within 12 months of AI4 getting it, I'd love to bet against you. So let's put some money on this.
All right, Shallow Han is going out on a limb. I'm joking. Brian, did you want to chime in on some of this?
A lot of the versions that we saw recently came out for hardware 3 before hardware 4. So the idea that hardware 4 is going to be the only one to get them is ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense at all.
It's AI4, Brian.
All right. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, no, I think you know, FSD, you know, like I said, it's a small lean team, but the majority of the cars on hardware 3, at least for the moment. At some point, hardware 4 will ramp as volume goes up and stuff. So it's going to be, you know, you're not going to leave this population behind. And I think that there's even things, you know, some of the older cars, they're finally get, oh yeah, let me mute that person. Sorry, block user. Sure. Okay. So sorry, spammers. Please don't spam the chats. Thank you. But yeah, I just wanted to say it's like, you know, hardware 3 has tons of data. And I think for the longest time, Elon would say that, you know, hardware 3 is going to be better for a certain period of time more than hardware 4. So I don't know if that time has passed, that hardware 4 is going to potentially, you know, catch up or is, you know, going to accelerate past it. But hardware 3 has a huge user base. You better believe that, you know, they're going to continue to release these major updates with them. And I'm gonna, you know, maybe I'll take this on record, but I do think that if Tesla accomplishes FSD, I would assume hardware 3 is going to be capable of that full autonomy. So that's my thought. But again, I don't know when Tesla will accomplish FSD finally. So going out on a limb there. All right. So one other quick thing that happened this past week, free paid option bundled with FSD purchase. Again, you're starting to see Tesla just, I think, mix things up. So specifically, all Model X all-wheel drive buyers in the US get one paid option free if you buy FSD. So that means you can essentially get the 6-seat interior or the 22-inch turbine wheels for free if you add FSD. So I think that's a good deal. But I thought that it's good to see them, you know, making up various variations on this. I don't know if you all want to give thoughts on that, but
Yeah, I think anything you can do to alleviate the stress of, I mean, this is like, I mean, as we know, like this is like a terrible time to buy a vehicle with interest rates and all that type of stuff. But anything you can do to help ease that pain, you know what I mean, for a lot of people who actually need to buy a vehicle, and some people who are like wanting to upgrade to something else, like I think it's I think it's good.
all right. So the Tesla Semi is making moves, and actually, I don't even think. Not only is it in, is it being seen in Germany at Giga Berlin, but also too the structural steelwork has begun. And then again, there was actually, you know, the Tesla Semi being tested. I think, as Joe, as you mentioned, with what was it, LiDAR specifically? Yeah, I don't. Either way, it was.
Yeah, all the hardware on it. Brian mentioned
Yeah,
that.
exactly. So that's huge steps. Again, a lot of the stuff is kind of taking a little bit longer, especially with the FSD and even the rollout of the Semi. But they're moving forward, and it's good to see, you know, that they're pushing hard for this. So I'm looking forward to seeing this factory go up in Sparks, Nevada, specifically for the Semi. I think, what is it? They can annualize 50,000 a year. I really do think that, you know, this product is going to really change the trucking industry, especially for a lot of the routes that are just the same mundane. I mean, if you think of California, it's the perfect. I mean, you have 400 or 500 miles of just central California Highway 5 where a lot of the warehouses are. And so I know it'll change those. And there's so many other parts of the US that if they have a Semi and it's not running on diesel and you're paying for charging instead, it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect application. The vast majority of trucking routes are well-known, well-established routes. They're port to hub, they're farm to hub, and from there they're distributed out. And these are predictable. You know your use case. You know if it's going to work for you. It's going to take a long time. to get enough juice out to all those different yards, to all the different places where the trucks are actually going to be parking. And as they do, there'll be hopefully trucks ready for it to fill all those use cases, because it's so much cheaper. It's so much better in terms of the actual operation. And I expect we're going to hear in the announcement, what is it, next month, that they will be building them in Germany as well. And it's entirely possible that those two that we saw shipped over to Berlin have been modified to fit the road standards there. I know in Germany they were hoping to get the road rules amended, and that could still happen. But if they can just make an adjustment so it fits under their rules without a need for legislation, that would be a big time saver. And the last thing I'll say on the Nevada plant was, when I saw all those cherry pickers go out there, all those bucket things to do, somebody was saying, oh, they're going to use that to lift the steel. And I said, nope, they're going to wait for the crane. Hey, this is Tesla, man. We're not waiting for nothing. If we need to put them up, we're putting them up. And here we go.
Yeah.
One thing that I'll say is, it strikes me as not coincidental that we see the first cathode and anode produced 4680 with the dry electrode process, that we saw that Cybertruck that had both, and immediately now we're starting to build the semi factory. So I think they've been preparing for this. I think that the 4680 progress has really been the limiting factor that has held the semi project back. And I think this, to me, is a positive sign that they have confidence now in being able to ramp in-house production of 4680s with dry cathode. And hopefully that will also include some special technology to help reduce the likelihood of fires in the semi-pack, as we've seen, the one example of that really being kind of problematic. And so if there's anything additional that they can do, obviously we know that, the electric vehicle packs are much less likely to catch on fire than an ICE vehicle. But in a situation like the semi, where you have such a high density of energy that's required, if we can make it even more safe, that would be fantastic. So hopefully the dry cathode process has an additional component in it. There is speculation on a number of different technologies that could be added to that to make it even less likely to have those problems in the future too.
Well, just like that, 58 minutes goes by. I did want to just do a quick plug for our friends who are going up to the Arctic Ocean. We have our friends, Raphael, Nancy, Gary, and Justin. So Bearded Tesla, Teslatino, and Gary as well, and Nancy, they are all doing a Cybertruck. It's called the Arctic Cybertruck. It's a 5-day excursion through some of the most remote and ugly and gnarly places you can go. But again, they're going up to the Arctic Ocean through Canada in 2 Cybertrucks. And they're just out there to really just promote sustainability and really just showcase that you can take anything through the most insane places on the earth. So I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you follow them.
And they're putting chargers out, like
Yeah.
level 2 charging solutions for the people who come after them, so that it would be much easier for those
So they have
take this track.
Exactly. So they have 6 wall connectors that they're essentially going to be installing so that anyone after them can essentially charge their car or trickle charge it. But go to arcticcybertruck.com or follow, obviously, Teslatino and Bearded Tesla to really kind of get these updates. But it starts tomorrow, from my understanding. So unless there's any hiccups, but make sure you check them out. And again, make sure you patronize these amazing people here. They are tagged both on X and on YouTube. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and patronize them because they give up their time each week. And quick shout out to Joe for the deck this week. Thank you again for doing that each week. And we will see you all next week. So have a good weekend. Labor Day for those that are in the U.S. Enjoy the long weekend and have some grilled burgers and some beer, hanging out, tailgating with the family. So, all right. See you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.